Welcome back, guys. So Rafi here. Thank you for joining me. And last time we talked about how do you conduct an investigation that will lead you to writing your paper. For example, remember when you're writing a paper or a research paper, you're the investigator, right? You're trying to investigate, examine something using a particular instrument or a framework, and you're using that instrument, applying that, okay, by, let's say, looking at a particular material. Like last time, we looked at this external communication example, right? And we wanted to focus on the four communicative competences by Hymes, right? We wanted to use linguistic competence, social-cultural competence, discourse competence, and strategic competence. But we did not finish everything. We just focus on linguistic competence because that is already a lot, right? So today I'm going to demonstrate to you. Let's say we wanted to focus on one aspect of Delheime's concept or theory of communicative competence. This time, looking at examples of external communication, for example. By the way, it can be anything. Your specimen can be anything. Your material can be anything, so long as you can apply that concept or theory into your investigation. So let's say we're investigating a lot of these materials, these letters, and this is an example now. I'm going to demonstrate to you how you can make use of the discourse competence in evaluating this external communication piece. So again, what is our goal? Our goal is to find answers to this question. Is discourse competence shown here? Was this demonstrated by the writer or the company when they prepared this material? So that is our goal. Okay, so let's take a look at this material here. What is our guide in determining whether or not a particular piece of communication is demonstrating discourse competence? Now, when we say discourse, it can be something that is written or something that's spoken. In this case, we are dealing with something that's written. You can also, by the way, evaluate something that's recorded, and that's also considered a text, okay, or oral text, if you may. Now, how do you evaluate this using discourse? First, we need to define what we mean by discourse. Delheims gives us some specifics, right? It includes comprehension. So if a person is able to comprehend something and then they demonstrate that, let's say they read a book, and in that reading, they were able to get the idea, grasp the idea of that particular book, and then they shared it to other people, or they wrote something about it. Then the writing or the speaking aspect can now be evaluated based on whether or not there was a clear understanding, so comprehension there. The other aspect is to check whether that understanding or comprehension is actually seen in the writing or the speaking. For example, maybe we would say that, okay, to determine if there is discourse competence, I will be using the word clarity or clear. In other words, my standard would be the writing should be clear. There should be organization, right? So we will now apply some of the writing principles here. So there should be coherence from introduction to the body all the way to the conclusion, right? There is coherence, for example, within a particular sentence, right? So the organization, the flow of thoughts, etc. It's, it's a normal flow. It's logical there. We have to use logical. Is the flow logical or is it jumbled? All the ideas, are they jumbled? I find some ideas here and there. There's no organization. That may be our definition, okay, based on our understanding of discourse competence. In other words, if I may use just one word, everything is just so clear and logical. So maybe I would use two words, clear and logical, and maybe I can add another one, coherent or cohesive, by the way. Things are cohesive and coherent, all of those. Now, let's say those are our parameters, okay? The parameters for determining. So I will have to write that down. So let's say now we're going to evaluate this material, and I would want to focus on my definition of discourse. I limit it because you're the researcher. You can limit the definition or the scope. So I limited the scope of discourse to mean that there is cohesion in the writing, meaning it's organized, okay, from the intro, body, to conclusion. And when we say organization, there is logical. Did I mention that? Okay, there's a logical flow, okay, flow of thoughts. And things are connected. So when we say things are connected, there are transitional devices. Okay, transitional devices used. Now, transitional devices like therefore, in addition, next, finally, etc. Okay, or you can use first, second, third if you're enumerating. First, second, third, etc. Now, let's say these are the ones we are looking for in the writing. Okay, we would want to know if there is discourse competence. We are not focusing anymore on linguistic. We're not going to look at grammar, although that will affect the flow, but that's not our main concern here. Our main concern is we're just looking at, okay, is there discourse competence? We begin again. In your methodology, you will have to specify again that you're going to be analyzing all these. Let's say you're analyzing 20 letters. You will have to indicate there how you will analyze, the how, the steps. So you will say, I'm going to be analyzing from top to bottom, something like that. So I'll look at the introduction, body, conclusion. Let's say this is your, this is your intro, this is the body, and this is your conclusion. Okay, so of course, this is a letter. This is not an essay, but we're just using it to demonstrate how we can investigate something using a particular set of lens or your framework. Again, what is our framework? Our framework is Hymes discourse competence. Is there discourse competence here? So let's take a look. If we're just considering clarity, for example, words are arranged accordingly, then you might say that from top to bottom here, everything is organized. Why? Because this is the pattern for letter writing, for example. You have to begin with a date unless that has changed or unless your teacher says differently. But as far as I'm concerned, I will begin with the date on top. Okay. Let's just say we don't have this for simplicity, because in a typical world, all right, in the normal world, we don't add any more the details, okay, of the sender. Sometimes it's indicated on the the template or the letterhead, but just say we simplify things. So if we have a letter and we are trying to analyze if this demonstrates discourse competence, then we would probably agree together. We would agree that from top, line 1, all the way to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way to line 6 on even 7. This is now line 8, all the way to line 7. We did not see any error as far as discourse. So what are we looking at in terms of discourse? We're looking at the arrangements of words, the placement of words, because we say that the definition of discourse is there's logical flow of words. There's a logical flow of order of words. Because if these are disorganized. For example, I put the name of the company there beside the date, then you would probably notice that there's an error. And this error here is not, we're not focusing anymore on communication, corporate communication, but we're focusing on discourse competence. So you would see that, hey, this one is misplaced. So I write it down in my notebook and I would say, okay, the word reverie, the name of the company is supposed to be, it's in the wrong place. It should be after the secretary. Okay, that's the normal order because we know how corporate communication is done or letter writing is done. Suppose, okay, so let's return that to its original place. Okay, so the normal order that we are aware of, that we know, is that you have to have the date, name of the person or addressee, their position if they have a position, and if you know the position, the company, and the complete address. Suppose the Metro Manila is put here. So you know there's a problem with discourse competence here because the person is not demonstrating logical flow or order of the words. Okay? So somehow it's also about grammar a little bit, but we're not, again, worrying about that. There's a problem with spelling there. So we see that, we note there that there's a problem with the order of the words. What else? What else is our definition of? It's not also logical. So we might say in our observation, the order of words is not correct because Metro Manila is before the barangay or village rather than barangay first and then the city and then etc. All right. The rest of the address. Okay. Now you write that down and you already probably noted 2 or 3 errors and you move on all the way and say, all right, I'm looking at the line number 7 here. I don't see any error. Okay. The next, let's say this is our introduction. Campo Society is a social civic organization that aims to help and reach out to people in need. Okay, so after looking at that sentence, we probably notice that there's no error in terms of the clarity of the sentence. The sentence is clear. Now we move on to the next sentence. This December, okay, the Campo Society will be holding its outreach fair, Pasko Kapamilya. Now, you have to have some guidelines and that will guide you, okay, that will dictate to you how clear is clear, okay, what makes sentences clear or connected. So the rules in cohesion, for example, organization, should be applied. So if we're looking at the introduction, for example, the normal rule is that the first sentence should be connected to the second and the third. In fact, the first should also be connected with the second paragraph, the third paragraph, and so on. So you again apply those rules. Let's say we're looking for clarity. So we say, okay, this is clear because the first sentence connects with the second sentence, right? Suppose, okay, we move on to the second. Now, if the sentence were to begin with the phrase, we are knocking on your generous hearts. Now, that's also okay. That's also acceptable. But you notice that the writer here put in the spirit of giving. Okay, we might, we may consider this as part of the transitional devices. This introduces you or introduces the reader to something that's still connected because remember here, the person talks about Pasko or Christmas, okay? And now that idea is being connected here in the spirit of giving because Christmas is about partly it's about giving. And also there is a preparation for you, for the reader, that you're now moving on, or you're connecting a particular idea this Christmas, Pasko, Papamilya, with the next paragraph. Therefore, the use of this transitional device, okay, is telling us, the ones who are evaluating this content, that the person is still, or the material is still talking about the same idea. So the topic is still there. It's not going somewhere or wayward. So in the spirit of giving, we are knocking on your generous hearts to help support the success of our cause, to help the Kabanata Orphanage, and so on. Now, um, you might have other guidelines in determining whether or not a particular writing is cohesive or clear. Let's say I find the sentence a bit long, and I do find it long. It's not wrong to me, but there are just many, or two ideas here, probably, or even three. So I would probably consider this based on my guidelines or parameters that I have set for this research, for example, or this investigation. I would say, okay, it is better, okay, for the sake of clarity and organization, I would divide this into two. So probably I will stop from, let's see, in the spirit of giving, we are knocking on your generous hearts to help support the success of our cause. All right. To help the Cabanata Orphanage and St. Andrew Home for the aged. Okay. To help them have a Merry Christmas this year. So I would probably want to stop there. Okay, because I'm being guided by probably a guideline that says sentences should be spot on, meaning quite straightforward and not complicated. It should be easy to understand. Or maybe my rule is, my guideline is, there should not be a complex or compound sentence, just, simple sentences without being simplistic. Let's say that's my guide. So what, in editing this, if I were to edit, I would probably do that. Or I would just make a note for myself, since that's not my role. My role is to determine if there is discourse competence. And based on the standard that I set, that sentences should be clearer, and there should not be so many complex or complicated sentences that complicate the idea, okay, in the writing, then I make a note for myself and I say, all right, um, this particular sentence here could use maybe a simple sentence rather than a complex or compound or compound complex, whatever that is, whatever is, whatever we see there. But suppose this year, that's a sentence. And so this is the way it is written. Then what do? I don't do witch hunt. I just indicate there, oh, the sentence is correct and it's clear and it follows the guideline that I set based on Bell Hymes. Then I do the same thing and I go on. Is paragraph number 1 connected with 2? If I say, yeah, it's connected because there's transition and the idea, it's still about Christmas and giving during Christmas time. What about the connection between second paragraph with paragraph number 3? The Campo Society would not only bring hope and joy to our beneficiaries as well as to the community and our partners. So this may be grammar, but also clarity. As I said a while ago, that many times grammar, clarity, cohesion is affected by the correctness of our grammar, whether it's correct or not. So here, instead of using the person use as well as, when you say not only in grammar, okay, in usage, the partner is what? Not only, but also, right? But the person did not use that, but use as well as. Okay, it's about grammar, but it's also about clarity. So I will include this. So I would say, okay, there's an error there. The writer used as well as instead of but also. So it should read, the Campo Society will not only bring hope and joy to our beneficiaries, but also to the community and our partners. So that's clearer, right? It's about grammar, but it's also about clarity and the flow, the logical flow of ideas. So I noted in my notebook that there's a problem there, and I indicate what the error is. And I move on with the next paragraph. We would like to invite Reverie Production. Now, should there be a transition phrase here or word? Normally, but in a letter like this, you may or you may not. So probably I would say in this regard. Okay. So I would say in this regard, we would like. So that I'm still connecting it with the main idea here of the second paragraph or the entire writing here. So it's cohesive. There is a flow of logical flow of ideas. We would like to invite Reverie Production to be our partner for this fundraising event. Okay. Maybe I would stop there and I would say, okay, I see another, not a major flaw or major error, but writing cohesion flaw based on the standards that I have set. So I would say we will just stop there, right? We would like to feature you, for example. That's what I want based on the standards. So I have written all my observations. So what is now my conclusion or the discussion? I would say in the body of my writing now, I'm writing now my paper about the discourse competence in this particular company or their communication, examples of communication. Then I would say there were 15 errors, for example, or there were minimal errors. Therefore, let's say there were only 2 or only 1. There were very minimal errors. Therefore, we can say, or even if, let's say 0, there was no error in all the writings that I have investigated. Let's say investigated 10 or 20. Therefore, what would be your observation, your conclusion? Your conclusion now is that there is a discourse competence because the flow is good, it's logical, it's clear, there is some clear grasp or understanding of what was supposed to be articulated. Maybe that was given to the person by the manager. They were given the ideas and the person was able to articulate them clearly and accurately. Therefore, we can say, to make things fast and simple, you would say there is there is discourse competence. All right. So I hope this helped you. And then by the way, you keep repeating this until you are done with all the other materials that you are trying to evaluate. But again, your methodology guides you how you undertake the work. So your methodology will dictate you also how you are going to conduct the evaluation or investigation or research. You have to make sure you follow that methodology. Without the methodology, you don't have a guide. You don't have any direction. So your methodology is your direction. How are you going to do this? So you follow the same example that I have given you, supposing that you would want to use the discourse competence as your framework in examining a particular text. I hope you learned something. So if you have any questions, please let me know.